Hi everyone, Jared McLeod here. I'm getting a lot of questions from some of my clients and just having a lot of conversations with colleagues and friends about everything that's going on with this coronavirus pandemic, in specific the economy stimulus package that's been approved. So I wanted to put together this video with a banker that I work with. His name's Chad Engler. He works at Vectra Bank here in Colorado, and thought it'd be good to just make a video where we go through some of the details of the program, which is in specific how it affects small business owners or independent contractors, people that are 1099. So it's called the SBA Disaster Loan Assistance Program, and there are 4 different programs that are involved, and each one has different criteria of who is eligible, what sort of things you need to do to apply, what sort of documentation you need to have available, what amounts of funds are available to you. Some of these loans, they are they're calling them loans, but they're essentially grants, because if you qualify, you don't have to pay them back. And if you're using the funds for approved expenses, then they're essentially forgiven. So it's pretty unique program, and one of the crazy things about it is that it's first come, first serve. So if you're somebody who you've heard about it in social media and the news, but you don't really know what to do to apply for some of those funds, you could be missing out. So check out this video. Hopefully you like it. It's about 30 minutes long with Chad. He goes into a lot of great detail about a few of the programs in terms of how you access the funds, how do you apply, who's eligible, those sorts of things. So check it out.
All right, Chad, thanks for meeting with me. I've had some clients that have been asking about these programs that the government's offering. I believe it's called the SBA Disaster Loan Assistance Program, and there's a few different programs that they're offering for different business owners and stuff like that. So thanks for agreeing to meet with me and chat about this, because there's obviously a lot of small business owners out there who have heard about these programs in media, on the news, and we're just not sure what exactly we have to do to be eligible for these or apply for these or whatnot. So thanks again. Just going to go through a few questions for you or with you, and if you can just elaborate on some of these programs for us, that'd be awesome.
Absolutely.
Okay, so Chad, I guess first off, tell us who you are, tell us who you work with.
Yep. Thanks, Jared. So my name is Chad Engler. I'm a business development officer for Vectra Bank here in Colorado. We are a specialized business bank. We are part of the Zions Bancorp, and therefore we are an SBA approved lender, which is required for the payroll protection program. And like you said, there are a couple of different options, and we'll kind of elaborate and walk through each of those options that are out there. Again, there's a ton of information being put out via the media sources, and honestly, there's some contradictory information, and I want to hopefully be a resource for self-employed folks, whether they have a number of employees or whether they may be a subcontractor, 1099 type of self-employed individual, and walk through the options and hope that people are understanding the program and can obviously fill in additional questions as they come up.
Right. Okay. And do you guys only do loans within Colorado?
So Vectra Bank only does loans in Colorado. However, we have affiliates primarily in the Southwest U.S., California, Nevada, Utah, New Mexico, Texas, Idaho. So if we have clients in those other states, we can hook them up with an affiliate in their area who can really become that personal banker. I've heard from multiple clients that have come to me that may bank currently with some of the bigger banks in the U.S. And one of the comments that I had heard was that you call in, you wait about 30 minutes, and the voicemail tells you to leave a voicemail, and they'll return your call within 48 hours. I think that's kind of shooting in the dark, right?
Yeah.
When these programs are at a first come, first serve type of situation, you definitely don't want to feel like you're in the dark. And that's where Vectra Bank can kind of separate itself from some of those other institutions. A lot of the smaller banks and the community banks aren't SBA approved. So therefore, they're kind of scrambling to try to become approved. Again, that's just going to waste more time that these clients really don't have, and neither do their employees.
What about like credit unions?
Credit unions are not eligible for this program.
Okay, that's good to know.
They get a lot of other benefits by being a credit union, and that's great for them, but not great for this particular situation and these particular programs.
Okay, so let's start off by first explaining what the different programs are that are offered by the SBA Disaster Loan Assistance Program. I believe there's 4.
Correct, Jared. The first program is the Payroll Protection Program. This program, you can get some additional details as well by going on to sba.gov and clicking on the Learn More about the COVID funding options. The Payroll Protection Program is really intended for those businesses that I would say employ more than 2 or 3 employees, anything over that. One of the other big factors in that particular program is that the business has to have 500 or less employees. So again, I think this particular program is going to be for those businesses that do have payroll, and they're worried about, if the business is being impacted, how are they going to pay their employees? This particular program is intended for the companies to receive loans that are, if used for the correct purposes, will be forgiven. We're asking clients to look at their 914, which is a tax form that shows some of those numbers for their payroll, as well as a 2019 detailed profit and loss. This one is the particular program where those businesses that are applying for this will have to open up a new checking account, which Vectra Bank can help with pretty quickly. We establish that checking account. We're going to fund this program through those accounts, and then ask that those businesses track all of their expenses through this account as well. This particular program, in order to be forgiven for a portion or all of the proceeds of the loan that they qualify for, they're going to need to use these for payroll specifically, as well as they can use up to 25% of this for other business expenses, whether it be a mortgage or a lease that the business has in place to have their facility.
So if they work from home or something like that, that could count as a mortgage payment.
Correct. A lot of 1099 subcontract people use their homes, and they write a portion of that expense off through the business, through the business use of home. So that would also be an eligible expense per the SBA.
Okay. So that's the Paycheck Protection Program. So I think we have an idea of the type of people that would be eligible for that.
Yeah.
What are the other 3 programs?
The next program that I want to talk about is what is called the EIDL loan advance. This particular option is done directly through the SBA website and is a $10,000 loan to a business that has been impacted by the COVID, coronavirus. I'm looking right now at the SBA.gov. I went to the funding options and then selected the $10,000 EDIL option. The last sentence in the overview is that this loan advance will not have to be repaid. Eligibility is basically any business that has been impacted. Again, they have to have less than 500 employees. And that is where I think a lot of the subcontractor 1099 folks, if they don't have payroll, if they don't have some of the other expenses that go with having a building, I think that this is going to be a really great option for those businesses to get $10,000. So while it is considered a loan advance, again, the overview states that these loans are not going to be repaid.
So it's almost more of a grant.
Exactly, and that's what I would call it, would be a grant versus, a loan.
So could a company apply for more than one of these programs?
So that is where a lot of the misconception comes from. And you need to speak to, someone who understands the programs, whether that's your banker or not, or if that would be me. You can only apply for one of these options. Now, as things continue to evolve, and ultimately these funds are starting to be dispersed, we do anticipate that the government will have additional funding down the road. Again, this is the small businesses that are in the U.S. And ultimately, if those small businesses fail, the U.S. is going to be in a much more difficult position. So therefore, we do anticipate that additional funding will be made available in the future. However, these programs were really rolled out on not Friday the 3rd, but the Friday prior. Ultimately, the other two options are typically going to be for a much larger and short-term type of funding. The next option is an SBA Express Bridge Loan. This is an option to get $25,000 quickly. This is a temporary loan that you will be required to pay back in full.
Okay.
So again, depending on your business and the options that, and your expenses that are associated with your business, that may or may not be the option. The last option is what is called the SBA Debt Relief Program. These will be, again, loans that are being offered to consolidate higher interest stuff for businesses. It's going to be for a period of 6 months, and the interest rate will be 0.5%, but they're basically going to need to make the payments back within a 6-month period. Again, you need to consult somebody, work on a year-to-date profit and loss for 2019, and that's likely to tell you which option may be best for your business. In my opinion, really there's two options. for 95+% of the businesses out there, which is either going to be the payroll protection program or the EIDL loan. Okay. The other options available just don't make a whole lot of sense if there are options that you may not have to repay in the future. So, you know, that is exactly what we're looking at. And ultimately, the EIDL loan, again, you will go to SBA.gov. The first bullet that pulls up is for the coronavirus programs. You'll hit that, you'll click on their link, go to coronavirus funding options. That is where all 4 of those options are directly on their website. Again, the payroll protection program, you need to work with an SBA approved lender. The EIDL loan is done directly through the SBA website. The EIDL loan, you're going to need some basic information, including your gross sales from 2019, as well as your cost of goods sold, which are going to be, you know, primarily your expenses. And then you are going to put in some basic information, EIN for the business, address, phone number, email address, and then you are going to have to put your personal information in there as well, including your social security number.
Right.
Ultimately, you sign up for this, you get into line. They're anticipating funding for that particular program to begin next week, which would be the week of the 13th through the 17th of March or April, and therefore fairly quickly. I could see a large majority of businesses that don't have payroll, or if you're a 1099 subcontractor, this is going to probably be the option for you.
So if you're somebody who receives a 1099 from someone you work with, if you're an independent contractor, you get 1099 from maybe several people or one major person,
right.
you could potentially apply for this.
Correct. I would say that if your monthly payroll and other expenses do not exceed $5,000, the EIDL loan is going to be the best option for you. Okay. If your monthly expenses exceed $5,000 a month, the payroll protection program is going to give you more funding than the $10,000. And that's where we have a lot of different tools, frequently asked questions. And I want to, just kind of hit on some of that information, as obviously it is very relative to our conversation.
Sure.
We've talked about who qualifies for the payroll protection program. They're going to fund you 2.5 times your monthly expenses. So again, that's where that $5,000 number that I'm talking about is coming into play.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, if your expenses are not more than $5,000, the $10,000 EIDL loan will give you more funding. The funds can include payroll costs, including salaries, paid leave, medical, healthcare, and that essentially is up to a $10 million loan. Now, again, most businesses are not going to have those types of expenses unless they have a larger number of salaries that they're paying. And ultimately, what that deal looks like is that they are going to give you a loan for 2.5 times your expenses. And then as long as you use those funds for salary, as well as some of the other expenses that we've mentioned, those loans are going to be forgiven. Now, any portion of that loan that is not forgiven is put onto a loan where the first 6 months are deferred. So they're doing a 24-month loan. with the first 6 months payments being deferred, and then the remaining portion is going to be amortized on 18 months at half of 1%, so a 0.5%. So
Seems like
even
a pretty
if
good deal.
you're not going to get a loan at half of a percent
No, never.
anywhere. So this is a really great thing for our small businesses throughout the country, and ultimately is going to allow them to pay their employees while they may not be able to either work from home or the business is closed because it's, a restaurant and, maybe has limited number of employees that are actually working. And so this way, they don't go file for unemployment. They don't have to wait for unemployment to be approved, as there's a large number of people applying all over the country. To stop another housing issue moving forward. Because if we can help these employers pay their employees for the next 2.5, the end of May, right now it's being projected through the end of April. However, I don't see a lot of those businesses opening, the first week of May, because honestly, if we see this level off and even start to see some decline, we all can't just run out and go to the restaurants and, doing some of the things that could spread the virus even more.
Right.
And that's one of the biggest concerns with the CDC. We're not going to be quick to just get back to normal. And so this is an option that's going to fund them through, hopefully May and June, half of April, May, June, and hopefully by July, the economy and the world is kind of starting to get back to what used to be normal.
Okay. What sort of documentation does somebody need if they're trying to get a paycheck protection program loan through you? So when they reach out to you, obviously they'll do an application with you. What sort of documentation are they going to need that they could start preparing right now?
Yep. Something that I have and that I'm sending to those clients that I'm working with is an SBA checklist. For new clients, we are going to have to open up that checking account, which is going to require that you provide a copy of your driver's license or government issued ID, as well as a W-9, which I would provide to those clients directly, or they are able to search for that. Just make sure that you're using the most recent format for the W-9. Like I said, the 941 form, which is part of the tax returns, as well as your 944 and IRS form 940. Again, those are forms that are going to be in your tax returns. If you have not yet filed 2019 tax returns, which I know with the extensions that the government's put in place, some people may have not completed those. They're going to go off of the 2018 numbers. Okay. For independent contractors, we're going to want to look at that 2019 1099 or 1099s that you received. Sole proprietors, we're going to look for that 1040, which is your personal tax returns. We're going to be looking at your Schedule C, which is where you report that income. For payroll, we're going to be looking at from March of 2019 through or January of 2019 through March of 2020. Breakdowns by each payroll person, employee, include time off, vacation time, sick, medical leave, state and local taxes, health care. So those are all portions that are going to be included in the forgivable portion, including their retirement plans. Okay. I'm going to be looking for their bylaws, certificate of entity. Most clients are really going to be looking for their articles of association and certificate of good standing, which you would go to your state and you would look up like the Colorado Secretary of State, do a business search. You need to be current. So go into the Secretary of State website. If you need to pay the $30 to renew, do it. You have to be in good standing with the Secretary of State in order to be able to get this done. Okay. Again, we would provide those clients that don't currently have bank accounts with us some additional information. Obviously, we're going to ask for date of birth, social, address, mother's maiden names, things like that for typical security through a checking account. And then again, what we're going to be doing is funding these loans through that checking account, and those clients pay those expenses out of that account. In 90 days, the SBA is going to come back to those folks that go through the payroll protection program, and we're going to have to provide information on what those sources were and uses of those funds. Again, we want to streamline this, put it into one account, have the expenses paid from that account, so that we can literally send the SBA 90 days worth of bank statements, which would include copies of checks, and therefore try to get as much of this loan forgiven. The EIDL loan is not going to have to be repaid. So again, if your expenses do not exceed $5,000 a month, the EIDL loan is exactly what you should be applying for.
Now, when did they first start taking applications? Because you were saying that the EIDL loan is going to be a first come, first served basis. When did they start taking applications?
Each lender, so when the program started last Friday, the last Friday in March, they left it up to each individual SBA approved bank to figure out how the funding was going to happen. As of today, Vectra Bank has started to submit applications, and there are lots of different applications out there. Don't use them. If you are using them, it's great practice, but those are not the applications that you're likely going to need to fill out for Vectra Bank or your specific bank. You need to be talking to a banker.
Right.
That knows
unless you're doing the EIDL, in which case you just go straight to the website.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And literally that application, with knowing some of the knowledge that you're going to need, should not take you more than probably 10 or 15 minutes to do. Right. I think, Jared, you recently just did that today, I believe.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it was super easy.
Super easy. Just make sure you know your EIN, know some of your numbers for 2019 as far as sales and your expenses. And then that's really it. The rest of it, you should know the address, email, all that fun stuff. So very quick. Myself personally, I have a small business as well that I'm involved with. That was the option that we had applied for because we don't have payroll at this point. So this will be a great option for us because, again, we don't have a lot of those expenses, and $10,000 is going to allow that business to get through the next 90 days.
For sure. Okay, last question. Any idea when the government will start, releasing these funds and cutting checks to people?
That's probably the most common question that we get. And as of this moment at 4 o'clock today, there isn't 100% answer for that. Ultimately, what's going to be happening is that banks like Vectra Bank and Zions are going to be funding these loans ourselves. which is great for a bank like Vectra and like Zion's Bank, because we're very well capitalized. We could fund this entire program ourselves through the payroll protection program. Now, obviously, that's not going to happen, but that should give our clients and those clients that are going to be working with Vectra a whole lot of comfort, because we're going to roll out the money and then figure it out with SBA how to be reimbursed for that, which is something that I really appreciate. Working for a bank that is like, we're going to get the money out and we will figure out how we are going to get paid back. Ultimately, loan officers are not going to be paid for this, which is fine. I understand. What I really want to do is help the small businesses of America make it through not only the 90 days, but come out on the other side of the 90 days. And hopefully get back to where we were even as little as a month ago. The economy was doing very well, and we want those businesses to get back on their feet and get our economy back in line.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Okay, Chad, I appreciate your time. I will include a link to the SBA website where people can fill out those applications, and I'll include links how people can get in touch with you.
Yep. VectraBank.com/cares is another resource for you. Again, ultimately, let's talk through your particular situation. Let's make sure that you're getting, the full amount of funding that is going to help you get through the 90 days.
Right. Cool. Awesome, buddy.